Hi everyone. Today's tip number 4, saying the hard things. I think all of us have been in a position at least once, mostly many times, where there were hard things that needed to be addressed, whether in personal relationships or whether at work. There's almost always some sort of conflict that comes up where something needs to be addressed and done, something needs to be done about it. So this is near and dear to my heart because it took me a long time to actually find my own inner strength to address the things that needed to be addressed and do it in a productive manner. Um, Emotions tend to run high. We often predict that it's going to be this horrible thing, and so we choose to either address it from an attack position where we blame the other person for whatever infraction, or we choose to just stuff it and, not address it. And by doing that, we avoid that conversation altogether and we hold on to it until we explode because we just can't hold on to it anymore. I would like to encourage everybody to say those hard things. And I'm going to try and give you some tips today on how you can do that in a productive manner and hopefully find resolution to those issues. So, the first step, of course, is choosing to say the hard thing rather than avoid it. That choice can be difficult because sometimes you feel like in the moment that's a minor infraction. I don't really need to say anything. And then pretty soon there's another minor infraction, and you're like, whatever, I can just get on with it. And then pretty soon there's another and another, and they just keep piling up. The problem with not addressing that minor infraction right at the time is that uh, holding on to that increases the chance that you're going to explode from the emotional baggage of it. So I encourage you to say whatever needs to be said in the moment and learn how to do that in a productive manner. So let's start with I statements versus you statements. When you start this conversation, think about starting it from a position of I. I feel like fill in the blank. I feel like, or I feel when you do this, I feel like you are trying to hurt me. I feel hurt when you say that. I feel like you don't value me. I don't feel seen. Um, all of those things are valid statements. You're saying it from your perspective, from your point of view. When you say an I statement, you are automatically leaving the door open. Okay? So when you start with an I statement, you're giving the other party a chance to respond and not just attacking. So let's do an example of you statements. You always, you never, you make me, you made me. All of those you statements, they don't have a lot of basis. You're making assumptions and you're putting the other person on automatic defense or worse, counterattack. So, how many times, and I'm going to raise my hand on this one, how many times have you started with, you always do this and it makes me feel blah, blah, blah? I have totally done it. And the first thing they said was, well, you always, and counterattack. And you automatically, in a fight that turns into a stalemate, nobody's going to win that. There is no productive resolution for that. So let's start the conversation with I statements. Speak from your heart. Don't try to assume what's in their heart. Next, let's address the problem, not the person. Okay? So, whatever the other person has done or said, the problem is what, not who. So, if the other person said something or the other person did something, it's not what they did. I'm sorry. It's what they did, not who they are. Okay. So, you want to address the problem, not the person. So, don't come at it from, you did this and made me. That's a you statement. Let's come at it from, I feel hurt when you say this, and give the person the opportunity to say, oh, I didn't know that would hurt your feelings. Or I'm sorry, that never occurred to me. I will address that. You're leaving an opening for them to correct it and come to a productive resolution. Then stay focused on the problem, not the emotion. Okay, this one was really hard for me because my emotions run high. So choose, figure out the problem, okay? And then focus on the problem, not the person, and not the emotion that problem is creating. So one of my worst traits was allowing the emotion to just well up until it was explosive. And I felt like that anger, the hurt, when all of that came to an explosive boiling point, it was making me brave. Somehow it was giving it more credibility. Somehow I was being strong enough to fight with them. And I was literally picking the fight because I was letting the emotion take over. And not only that, but you're going to lose that fight because emotion tends to lose credibility. When you're not actually talking about a problem, actually working on a solution for a problem, and you're speaking purely from emotion, people tend to write you off. And whether or not you had a valid point, as soon as you are coming at it from a point of emotion, what happens is, this is the response I always got: why are you so emotional? Or, I didn't realize you were so crazy. Or, you are so emotionally unstable. I've heard all of those. And the truth is in the moment I was off my rocker because the emotion was just running away. So I lost all validity in what I was saying because the emotion was taking over, and I was just screaming at the top of my lungs with no actual, there was no problem. There was no offering of a solution. There was no resolution. It was just venting all of the emotion. That's all it was. I personally believe that there is a possible win-win solution for nearly every problem out there. And I learned a great tip for creating win-win situations. And I like to call it the in my perfect world scenario. So how that works is you offer up what your perfect world would look like. So house chores is usually what I think of when I start this, but it can work in work situations. Start with, in my perfect world, it looks like whatever. Then allow the other party to also express what their perfect world looks like. So in my perfect world, da 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 da. And then they get to say, okay, well, in my perfect world, da 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 da. And you then start comparing notes, okay? So you compare notes and then you discover, okay, well, that person's perfect world includes this. Well, I could do that. That's easy. That's not a problem at all. And the other person is looking at your list of things for a perfect world and they're like, well, that's easy. I can totally do that. Not a problem. And when you start comparing the lists, you realize that both of you together can start taking care of all of these chores, and neither one feels like they're being overworked or underappreciated or that they always have to make up the gaps. And it's a great way to potentially create a win-win situation where both parties feel satisfied and both parties get what they want. So try that out. Try that out with your current partner or even a partner at work that you feel like you need to redistribute the workload. And then when you are creating your win-win situation, don't forget to create consequences. So if the other person doesn't fulfill their part of the bargain, you get to say, well, I'm not cooking because you didn't do whatever. You didn't take out the trash or you didn't do the dishes, so I'm not cooking. Whatever those consequences look like for you and the other person, whatever sounds reasonable, you get to work out what that perfect scenario is. And then finally, hold yourself accountable to this new negotiated agreement. So if you said you were going to do something or not do something, as the case may be, make sure you hold yourself accountable. The whole value in making this new scenario is in holding yourself accountable and sticking to what you agreed to. And help each other. This does not have to be black and white. Have a little grace for yourself. Have some patience with the other person. When you're trying new things and you're starting new habits, those things take a little time to get ingrained. We like our ruts because they're comfortable. So, as you're going through this process of doing it new and different, have some patience, have some grace, and enjoy it. Laugh at each other, have some fun. It's not that big a deal. But I hope this helps you address and say the hard things. And while all of this can seem very overwhelming when you first get started, it becomes easier and it smooths out so many things. You're no longer carrying the stress of all of the things that were left unsaid. So I hope you found value in this. And if you did, please like, share, follow, subscribe for more tips on communication. And if you would like more personalized communication coaching, please message me. Until next time, I hope all your communications are blessed.